All right, we want to thank you to the Portland Sales Acceleration Meetup and video conference on scaling SDR teams. We've got about 10 different companies, 15 different individuals in the house who are really excited to meet with you guys and learn a little bit more about how they can scale their SDR teams. I'm going to start with a quick intro of each of you guys and then ask you to tell us a little bit about your backstory and what brought you to where you are today. Does that sound good? All right. Can the audience hear you? Let's get a big wave from the audience. All right. So I'm just going to start with Sean and then Jason and then Richard. Sean Kester is the head of product at SalesLoft. He joined SalesLoft as the first ever SDR sales development rep to lead the efforts of specialization from the traditional sales organization. As head of sales development, he quickly built, implemented, and scaled a process for the sales development team that is now the largest group inside the company. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you, guys. Super happy to be here.
Jason's managing director of outbound sales at Datanyze. He spent his entire career working in the Silicon Valley, working with startups, small and growing businesses in a variety of sales roles. He's been with us ever since the very first tweet chat, and he's leading Datanyze. He started off as the fourth employee, and he's helped to build and scale the sales development team to see 500% sales growth in last year. Welcome, Jason. And we're so pleased to have Richard Harris, principal and owner of the Harris Consulting Group and director of sales consulting and training at SalesHacker.com. Richard brings over 20 years of technology and SaaS experience in sales training, operations, and sales leadership into his role as sales consultant. He's worked with a number of different companies. We're so blessed to have all three of you guys on board today. How you doing, Richard?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to this.
You're welcome. I'd like to give each of you just an opportunity to talk a little bit about how you got started in sales. Take a few minutes, take 5 minutes if you want, and talk about some of the challenges you've overcome and where you're at today. Sean, we'd like to start with you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, first of all, super excited to join you guys today. My name is Sean. So I started at SalesLoft as the fifth employee back in 2014, a little over a year and a half ago. Was hired to really be the first SDR, build a process. Came very passionate about sales development at that point. Started inbound, moved to outbound, hired a team, and really grew that team out. Had the pleasure of kind of learning as we go. There was a lot of things that we didn't do so well and a lot of things that we did well at, but because we serve the sales development community, we had the ability to learn a lot from our customers and the people we interacted with every single day. And as that progressed, we moved and kind of added an additional product that was the second half of that prospecting process, which was the outreach. And during that whole process, I learned a lot about kind of the product life cycle and the release cycle and how to really set roadmaps for those things. And so as the company matured and the product matured and we had a need for a product manager, and we interviewed a lot of people and no one really knew about the process as well as the process of sales development as well as the process of product. So having come from a background where I knew what the needs were for sales development, it enabled me to kind of take those learnings and push them to what we implement in the product and who we serve. And now I'm super delighted and love every minute of taking all the feedback I get from thought leaders like yourselves and practitioners and the people that are involved in this day to day and kind of turning that into applicable features in a product. And I'm really excited to be here and share kind of the things that we have learned and did well and some of the things that we kind of tripped up on and the lessons we learned from that as well. So thanks for having me.
Sean, we are thrilled to have you today. We've got a lot of questions, but before we go into those, I'd like to have Jason do a quick intro, where you've been, where you're going. Tell us a little bit about life in the Silicon Valley, Jason.
The bubble's weird. It's no, it's great. I first started sales back in college. I used to sell educational books and software to kids in school, and I did it door to door. That's kind of where I got my feet wet and my first taste of sales, which I absolutely loved. And then naturally, living here in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley area, naturally just jumped into tech. Loved tech sales. I joined Datanyze, like you'd mentioned, as a fourth employee, and my task was to build out the sales development team and to kind of build that outbound engine. And I built it from just myself, like Sean. I acted like the SDR, learned the ins and outs, what worked for Datanyze. And then once I figured out the process and system that was repeatable and kept getting results over and over again, that's when I started to scale the team. And currently right now we're at 12 SDRs, and we'll probably look at taking that to possibly either a couple more or up to 20. So that's kind of where we are and where we're going right now.
Jason, that's an amazing growth curve. We're really excited to learn more about how you're overcoming some of the challenges associated with scaling. But first, I'd like Richard to take a chance to introduce the kind of work that you've been doing. I've been reading some of the work that you described on MindTickle. Very, very good strategy work. Tell us a little bit more about how you approach strategy with companies that are scaling.
Yeah, so I never really thought I would end up being a sales consultant. It was never my goal in life to go, oh, let me have a consulting business. I obviously been doing sales a long time, and one of my best success stories, I was with Mashery about 3 or 4 years ago before I started this, and they asked me to build a sales development team, but they didn't tell me when they hired me that I was going to be in San Francisco and they were going to be in Boston. So I had to build a team remotely, and I was traveling to Boston for about a week or two every month, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun, but eventually that got a little old, and I was able to sort of parlay my sales experience into becoming a director of sales operations. So in my career, I've done inside sales, outside sales, SDR, built out CR teams, SDR manager, inside sales manager, software, hardware, all this stuff. And then I've sort of defined myself of having a liberal arts degree in sales, having touched so much of it. And then literally when Mashery got acquired by Intel, people started moving on, and I had some people call me and ask me to do, help them build a team in Austin. And I said, sure, I'll go down to Austin and spend a month there. And then I had a second client, and, before I ever had a website or anything, I all of a sudden was a consultant. And so now I've worked with people like MindTickle and Top Ops and Gainsight. I'm working with a company called Social Chorus here in San Francisco now. And then I've gotten to know, Jason and Sean, a lot in the last year. So it's been a lot of fun to just be a part of that and be a part of the SalesHacker community and just really share the knowledge kind of stuff.
I think SalesHacker has done an amazing job in building a community. That's exactly what we're trying to do here in Portland. I just want to intro Casey Corrigan with Lytics. He just walked in the door. Casey's just a foundation anchor point here. I know you guys know him. We'll get him up here for questions. Before we start, I just want you guys to talk a little bit about scaling. Just kind of give us an intro as to what you think a company needs to look for after they've had, say, 2 or 3 SDRs on the team for a while. What are some of the vital signs that you need to see in place in terms of culture and analytics and training before a company starts to scale?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll start from go ahead. So there's a couple of things that I'm looking for always, and the first one is someone who's not only passionate, but they have a passion for becoming an expert. It's an expert of the product that they're serving or they're selling. It's an expert in the space that they sell into. It's an expert for really the ins and outs of what they're doing. And so I love someone who came in and, sales development is semi-new in the fact that it's come really out of the shadows and in the spotlight. But it's someone who's, eager to learn all about those things. They're eager to learn about the space, their competitors, what it is that the people they serve need, what it is that they want, and can really give that empathy to a prospect on the phone as far as the amount that they do care.
One of the things I look for when, I'm looking to add more people or to start scaling those efforts is, it's a different story when it's just you and you're building out your process and you find success. And then you notice that when you add 1 or 2 people, you're like, oh, crap, like here are all the gaps in my process. Let's fill those holes and then kind of change up the process a little bit and kind of adjust. And I notice every time we add more people, we always discover those gaps. And so, for me, I know it's time to add more or start hiring more when, if I have 2 people and there's success and everything's running smoothly, and there's no bumps and they all have traction, then I can say, okay, great, let's add 2 or 3 more people. We do that and see how it performs, see if there's any gaps in the engine. You kind of slowly kind of start adding like that. Right now, we've put a lot of people on the team, and so right now we're dealing with a lot of growing pains, and we're quickly identifying the gaps. Some we could anticipate, some others we couldn't. But I think if you're just always aware that, hey, look, there's probably going to be some gaps and some things might break, as long as you kind of have that mindset, you'll be okay. But typically, I like to have the engine running really smooth, and then I'll add more people, fix those bumps, let it get smooth out again, and then keep adding people. So that's typically how I've gone about it. So.
Yeah, I'll add a couple of things to Sean's point about knowing that you have the right people. I think there are 2 things that they have to have, which is the empathy and the natural curiosity. They've got to be willing to question everything. And that's from the rep perspective and their manager. The next thing that you need to do if you're ready to start considering to scale is you need to start knowing some of your numbers. You at least need to know some of your conversion rates. You at least need to have a process defined. And a lot of times when I talk to people who are just building or they're expanding their SDR team, they think that they need to define the entire process, and that's not the case. What you really want to do is define a hypothesis and then decide to prove it or disprove it. Even if you prove your hypothesis wrong, that's still valuable information. That's good data. So you need to take that level of approach. The next thing I want to make sure that people do too is that have they started to recognize, aside from their numbers, the different milestones that need to occur in order for a deal to close or for an appointment to be set. You don't have to know every one of them. You don't have to know all of them. As Jason said, you're going to keep learning more as you add more people and you get smarter people in to do things. So having those kinds of things, milestones, knowing your numbers, knowing your conversion rates, having some level of a process or attempting to create a process is a good sign. And then the last thing is, before you're going to add more SDRs, is your sales reps that you have don't have more room on their calendar. Mm-hmm. If they still have room on the calendar, then your current SDRs either need to become better or more efficient, or you need to start implementing some tools and then consider hiring, your next person. So that's the big piece that I look at too, is that people understand that until the AEs calendars are filled, you better make sure that you're getting every ounce of energy in a positive way out of your SDRs. And then I'll add one more thing. People have to be willing to spend money. And I understand bootstraps, I understand startups, but at some point you're going to have to make some investments. And if you don't invest in your sales team, then you're going to have a problem. And if you don't invest in, and I know it's going to sound like I'm pimping myself, but if you're willing to spend a bunch of money on a ton of tools, but you're not going to spend any money on actually training these people, then you're just going to create a bigger problem later. Yeah. So you need to make sure that they understand how to do their job.
Richard, I'd like to echo that sentiment and also echo some of the sentiment I've heard from some sales leaders here, in that there needs to be an investment in sales culture. Sometimes there's pushback from marketing or even the CEO that doesn't understand that. How would you recommend, all 3 of you, to bridge that sales culture throughout the organization so that the entire organization is committed and dedicated to building out a sales process?
Man, I mean, that's starts from the very beginning in terms of who you hire. You heard kind of Sean and Richard speak a little bit about the type of people you hire, but we're so, I don't want to use the word strict, but we know exactly the types of people, individuals that we want to hire, and we actually get the whole company involved. Now that we've gotten bigger, we don't have them interview with 40-something people, but we pick people from every single department, whether it's so if we have a salesperson coming in, we'll have someone from engineering, interview. We'll have someone from the sales development, the AE team, the customer success team, because we want them to, get a sense for, hey, could they work with this person? Could they hang out with this person? And I think the more you get the company involved, the more you can really keep that culture that you're building, because culture is really important here at Datanyze. And we turn a lot of applicants away because they might be skilled and all, but they don't have the culture fit. And that's been a really big thing for me and for the company when we're hiring new employees.
Do you want to go, Sean?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that was great stuff, Jason. So the way that I want to take a step back before kind of the culture fit of the SDR within the organization and talk about the way SDRs are represented in the organization. And so, at SalesLoft, we, first of all, we serve sales development folk. We prioritize it. We have done something a little different. So you have sales and you have marketing, and traditionally it's always been sales versus marketing, and it's where do the leads come from? Are they good leads? And we see sales development as this bridge that's between sales and marketing, and therefore we put the importance level high enough to give them a seat at the executive table. So our head of sales development, which was me and is now an awesome person named Margaret Winiger, reports to our CEO. She is in all the strategic meetings. She's in the management meetings. When our head of marketing, our head of sales, and our head of sales development all get together, they have a common goal, and that is to grow the revenue of our company. And so we've created SLAs between marketing and sales development and sales, and then even on top of that, sales and customer success for really the entire life cycle of the customer acquisition machine. And so when we talk about the culture, we prioritize sales development higher than we do the AEs, because they get all the glory, they close the deals, but we want to put sales development on the pedestal because it's really what drives that revenue generation machine for your company. And so we do things when we do company outings, we put them on a pedestal above everyone else. And so a cool story that we did is we all went to the lake as a company one day, and there's these things, and they're basically boots you strap on your feet, and they come out the back of a Sea-Doo. They fly you up in the air above a lake, like 50 feet or so. And I forget what the actual name for them is, but they're really cool if you've ever seen them before, like rocket boots. And we had 4 seats on them, and we had like 30, 40 people in our company at that time. And yeah, the AEs are closing big deals. And we said, hey guys, we got 4 seats. We're only going to give them to our top SDRs. And so we wanted to in front of everyone and kind of visually promote them and what they do every day. They're in the grind. It's a hard role. It's arguably the hardest within the company. Every single day they come in, they've got 0 demos set. When they leave, they have to have 2 or 3. And so we wanted to show the company and kind of the world how we prioritize it. So as far as the culture goes, in our company, we give them a seat at executive table. We prioritize them as the importance within our company, and we glorify them along the way.
I would agree. I would go even one step further back than Sean did, is that culture isn't defined by the department. It's actually defined by the organization, and it starts at the top down. I know Kyle over at SalesLoft, and I know that he's very big on culture. I've also worked with a lot of people who are engineers by design, right? And they are the founders, the CEOs of their company. And engineers don't necessarily understand the mentality of a salesperson. And on the flip side, I couldn't tell you what it's like to be an engineer. I don't have the desire to crunch out code for hours upon hours, and I so worship what they do and their dedication to it. But people need to understand you've got different types of personalities, and culture is important. And that means you're going to have to do some things. You're going to have to spend some money on some fun activities, regardless of the department. It's not just about the SDR department or the sales department. Each department should, what I've always coached people is each department should be able to do their own outings, like I think Sean is doing. But then so should the marketing department, and so should the other departments. But then on top of that, there should always be, once a quarter an outing for the company. And that's a really good and an important way to sort of boost morale everywhere. Probably one of the easiest ones that I tell people all the time is look for whatever the latest hot movie premiere is and take the whole company. Star Wars is coming up, and I promise you, if you take everybody out at noon for lunch and then go to the afternoon showing of Star Wars, they're going to tell everybody about it, and they're going to love it, and they're going to have a great time. And that doesn't take a lot. That's super easy. You call the theater, they'll sell you the tickets in advance. They want the money. It's not a big deal. The other thing that I think too is that inside sales has been treated as a redheaded stepchild for a very long time, long before the SDR ever existed or this particular role. And so I think that people need to understand that salespeople in general are emotional, not just SDRs. So we're going to go on through highs and lows. We're practically manic depressive when it comes to our job. So they need to understand that, and they need to understand that there are going to be ways to motivate them and other ways that you don't motivate them. one of the things I've always encouraged people to do too is, particularly for culture, is that, particularly when you're really small, a lot of people do sort of the Friday afternoon stand-up. I assume most people do this, but you need to share your wins and losses. You need to be able to tell the story of a deal that was won and tell the story of a deal that was lost and have the salespeople share that with the whole company. It's a little hard for salespeople because they don't want to admit when things go wrong, but it actually does a lot for culture because it lets people from other departments understand all the challenges that salespeople have, whether they're SDRs or AEs. And then it also builds that camaraderie because someone in engineering will come up and say, holy cow, I never knew you had to do that. I never knew you had to talk to someone when they said no to your whatever it was, pricing or anything. So those are big. Communication is key for culture, probably is the best way to describe it.
You guys are nailing it right now, and I want to just take a moment to introduce you to some of the sales leaders here in Portland, Oregon. This is really the main takeaway. I'd like to introduce you to Lou Petrossi with TalkDesk. Lou's got a question that he'd like to ask, and I'm going to ask Lou to step right up and speak to you right into the camera here.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Lou, how's it going?
It's really good, really good. First of all, we're happy customers of both SalesLoft and Datanyze, so thanks for being you, a big part of our success. Yeah, we pulled some reports just for fun before I came down. We've seen like a 20x ROI on SalesLoft since December and a 65x ROI on Datanyze, so really awesome stuff. Yeah. So, my question's about scaling. So I got 6 outbound SDRs, and by the end of the year we want to get to 12. I'm not worried about that. Like with our current tool set, like we can make that happen pretty easy. What I'm worried about is the next step. Like how do we get from 12 to 24 or above? Because I just see a potential for that being, pretty messy, a huge investment. So like, what types of advice do you have for like a really big SDR team, like 20 plus?
John, you want to go first?
Yeah, great question. So when I got the team of 12 people, and then we had Margaret take over. The first thing she did, and the thing that I was about to start doing, is we created something that we call a career matrix. And what this career matrix does, first and foremost, it defines the fact that sales development is really kind of the portal role into our entire organization. It's not just the junior, sales role or the bench for sales. It's really the entry level opening for, being an account manager on the customer success team, or becoming an internal recruiter, or possibly being on the marketing team. And so we wanted to define that role within the organization. And then from there, we wanted to set a few different paths based on where they felt they wanted to be or what they wanted to accomplish. And so we created this matrix that goes and it divides really into a couple different sections. And one being kind of an individual contributor role. And that's where you're kind of going for the highest quota and the highest commission and really the fastest track to becoming an AE. There's also a leadership role where as you grow, you can become a team lead and a manager. And so it gives you kind of some benchmarks along the way. And some of the cool benchmarks that Margaret sent in there was, first and foremost, in the first 3 months, you had to define really the how, the what, and the why of the organization. And it's something that really gets overlooked with hires that happen after the first few, and especially a startup. And, once you get into, 40, 50, 60 people, that how, what, and why, and kind of that buy-in for the organization kind of starts to slip away from the initial reason people took the job. And so they're tasked with really being able to explain that and articulate it and have that buy-in. And then second tier, it has to do with a lot of research. So if there's one thing we like to say is, leaders read. And we give the people the opportunity to read and kind of accumulate knowledge through either blog posts or books or articles written about it. And we really want them to kind of level up as humans and kind of think of things a little bit differently than they would have before. And it's not always just about quota. It's, our goal as an organization is to grow leaders. So we want to challenge them and give them opportunities to do that as well. And we have kind of a mini book club with, Margaret and Kyle, our CEO, and that, every couple of weeks or every month there'll be a check-in where they can kind of go through what they've read. And it might be how to influence how to win friends and influence others, or it could be what got you here won't get you there, and which are some great leadership books. And so they'll kind of dive into what that is. And then as it goes up, they gain extra opportunity for responsibility. But if there's one thing that we've established is that leadership roles aren't given, they're earned. And so we ask them to or we give them the opportunity to kind of perform the function of what it would be to be a leader before they actually have the title of leader, because the title doesn't really mean anything. It's action that does. And so we do that. And as we've grown, we've graduated a lot of people to AE. And so it's kind of put a deficit on the team. But as we've established this matrix, we've kind of defined where those people's roles end up. It empowers them with responsibility. They have ownership into what they want. And therefore, we've kind of solidified even more so than we thought was possible the structure, the underlining foundation of what it takes to grow that organization. And so really the jump from like 5 to 8 is not a huge jump. The jump from 8 to 15 is really, you have to establish this leadership and accountability, because you as the leader, you don't have the bandwidth to take on 15 people one-on-ones, and you have to put in middle management, and bringing someone in from the outside is not the answer. They don't know your culture. They don't know your product. They don't know the process. But building up those leaders and empowering them with their peers, it goes miles. And I've seen some people literally transform from newbie intern to leaders within our organizations, and it's awesome to see, and it's awesome to watch them grow. And I honestly wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah,
I would jump in on a couple of things. One, I'd probably push back a little bit on not hiring from the outside. I think as you grow, I think there are advantages to that and disadvantages. Hiring from the inside definitely cuts your ramp time. That person's going to know what to do. They're going to know their process. They're going to know how to do all those things. But sometimes everybody's drinking the same Kool-Aid, and you might miss something. So I think there's an advantage to that. And at minimum, I would at least interview some people from the outside to see what you might not know about yourselves, which I think is really good. The other thing that I would tell you, if you're going to scale from 12 to 24, your processes need to be really tight. By now, you should really be auditing your process and making sure your processes work and really know your numbers and your conversion rates. If you don't know them, then just adding more people isn't really the right answer, in my opinion. The other thing too is, and I say this a lot, is you don't have to hire that many more people. There's a lot of technology that will scale for you and make you go faster. There's a lot of dialing tools out there that'll let your reps make 400 dials a day and get you into 10 conversations in a day as opposed to 10 conversations in a week. You've got to look at your own, what's the length of your product, your customer list, and those kinds of things before you implement those things. But just adding bodies isn't necessarily the answer. There's a lot of technology that can make you be more efficient and get there even faster than if you hired bodies. So those would be my comments to that.
We're kind of on the same, I'm on the same boat that Sean was just before he moved to on the product side, head of product. But, I don't have a manager, or a team lead to help manage my team. And Sean's right. It is a lot. And there's no way I can get to everybody. So, I really, really leverage the more senior guys in the team. Because one, anytime you give someone an opportunity to step into leadership, they will, and they become bigger than they know themselves to be. And I think as my responsibility as a leader is to see them bigger than they see themselves and give them opportunities to constantly step into that bigger self. So for me, I really leverage them. Anytime I onboard people, I have the new guys do a good chunk of the training, because they're the guys that are the guys and girls that are the boots on the ground, and they now know the ins and outs a lot better than me because they're doing it all the time. So, if you guys are looking to scale from that 6 to 12, you really want to start leaning on those more senior SDR guys because they know how to do the job. And again, you want to give them opportunities to be leaders, and they will step into that leadership role. And if they don't, then you know that they're not cut out to be a leader. But I think giving everybody an opportunity to do that is incredibly valuable.
Guys, this is awesome commentary. This idea of the coach as leading the sales organization and growing the SDR team is such an important concept right now, and it's getting a lot of attention on blog posts. I know Max and SalesHacker just posted one today from Right Hello, I think it was a guest post. But early on, are there some sorts of ways that you can identify whether an SDR or an AE is going to be a good coach to lead a team. Maybe Richard, you want to take that one to start?
Yeah, I think that some of it you'll see naturally. Some of it will just happen through experience. You're going to hear, as a manager, you're going to start to hear what that person's doing from what you've been coaching them, and you're going to hear them coach their next new person who comes in automatically. So I think some of that bubbles up. You can sort of look for some of those things too in the interview process, making sure you understand what their goals are early on, making it define part of the career path, as I think Sean was talking about earlier. That's really, really important. So those are the things I look for. Just promoting your top person, the one who produces the most, is not an indication of management skills. That's probably the first thing I would tell you to make sure you don't do. You need people who are willing to have conversations, and for lack of a better word, sometimes they have to be good at babysitting a little bit. It's not I don't like to patronize it, but it's a little bit of, there's a little bit of that when it comes, particularly at that first level of management. So they've got to be willing to deal with a lot of bullshit from below them and above them, because they're going to get squeezed in both directions.
I think one thing that I look for, people who, I kind of piggybacking off what Richard was saying, I guess it's not so much bullshit that they have to be able to tolerate, but, at the end of the day, you're dealing with a human being, and as human beings, we're very complex. And I think you have to bring that empathy that, hey, this is a human being. I'm a human being. There's something that they are dealing with, whether it's personal or work related. They're still dealing with something. So when I see people interact, so my new hires, right? If I see them interact with someone in a way that's like, oh wow, that was really interesting. That wasn't the conversation or the thing I thought he would say. It was very more of a personal kind of approach, or just a lot of empathy in terms of what the other person was dealing with. So I kind of look for opportunities or things like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say really around that, but at the end of the day, we're human beings, and if I can see someone else treat another person as a human being with respect, then for me that's a good sign of a leader.
Yeah, to echo all that, I think the first thing that you have to establish is that leadership isn't given, it's earned. Foremost, people are their peer leaders before they're real leaders. And so we try very hard to identify those peer leaders. And what that really means is that not only they're not always the number one rep, but they're the most supportive person. They're not always the one who's crushing the most activity, but they're the most positive one. And so they go after it. They come up with new strategies and techniques. They know how to test them. They know how to interact with their team. They similar to the way Michael Jordan made Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman better humans in the game. They make the team around them better, and they're not always the top rep again, but they can make everyone else rise up and level up. And so one of the things that I love about our organization and I love about peer leaders is that they challenge the people around them in a way that they voluntarily choose to level up rather than demanding it of them. And so once you've kind of seen that trait in people, and early on you'll see it, and you can't always nab it in the interview. You may have kind of a suspicion, but as you see these people progress in their way they interact, then you can kind of take advantage of that, and you give them a little bit more opportunity to do things. But again, you're not empowering them with responsibility and management. You're saying, hey, why don't you try and challenge someone to do this, or why don't you try and do that? And if they do it, then they're leveling themselves up again. If they don't, there's no sweat off your back. You tried to give them that opportunity. So a lot of what we do and how we find peer leaders and kind of that middle management or that first tier team lead is based on the actions that they have and identifying some of those early traits. And then we put them through, some leadership training or some management training and see how they swim. But more often than not, those are the people that are most eager to do it. And they're the ones specifically we found, they're the ones that when you hear the word manager, they don't jump at it because they're like, oh man, that sounds cool. It's the people that were just automatically doing it. And sometimes you almost have to convince them that's what they were already doing. And those are the people that truly care about building the team around them. And just like you can have empathy for your customer, you have empathy for your teammates. And so again, I think, first and foremost, they level up everyone around them.
Yep.
All right, Nick Hart here from JAMA Software. Thanks for doing this, guys. This is really cool. So my question is kind of backtracking a little bit, and Richard, you had touched on this, but right now a problem that I'm dealing with a lot of our executive leadership is we're trying to hit like particular numbers with our inbound SDR team, and they are trying to throw just more people at the problem, whereas our entire inbound SDR team is sending one-off emails manually. I mean, we're managing it all very, very manually. And my take would be we need to get some tools and processes in place before throwing people at the problem. But I'd love to hear your guys' take. Sean, Jason, I know Richard, you kind of touched on this, but maybe Sean, if you want to start.
Sure. I'm a little biased.
I'll vote for Cadence, by the way.
Yeah, and I'm gonna keep it as unbiased as possible. So what you need to do is you need to empower your reps with technology. You're doing the right things. You're sending one-off emails. You're being personalized. You're going after the right people. You're spending the right amount of time. There are ways to do it faster and to kind of accelerate that process. So you need to find a solution that, first of all, allows you to set a process for what you want to do. And so I know that you most likely have touch points of either phone and email or social touches that you do with you and your reps. You challenge them to reach out to prospects a certain amount of time over a certain amount of days. You need to find a tool that allows you to set that process and hold them accountable. The second thing you need to do is make sure that it integrates with your email tool. And so whatever email provider you have, it integrates with that in a way that it seamlessly allows you to keep the same workflow, but add additional functionality. It needs to also integrate with your phone system. So whether you're calling from a VoIP phone or if you have a set phone in the office or using your cell phone, you need to be able to track everything you're doing out of that. And which leads me to my next point, which is your CRM integration. So it needs to be able to take all of the outbound activity that you're doing and log it into your database of records. So your CRM is your database of record. You need to be working out of an application of record. It's really everything that you're doing to acquire new information. You're calling, you're emailing, you're trying to get these people to have a conversation. Everything that you do, whether it be phone, email, or social, needs to track back to it. So I think those are the fundamental things that I would want to look at when you're in when you're looking for a solution like that. So at the end of the day, you can make the correct decision.
Just get done talking.
Yeah. I'll jump in on a couple more things too. Is that one? First of all, I think that Sean will have a Jason Vargas, Richard Harris special discount code available after this is over. But all of these tools will, whether it's SalesLoft or Cadence or SalesLoft Prospector, they all have some level of a trial. And the first thing you need to do is you just need to do it yourself, and then take the whatever trial they have. Sean, you guys still have one, I think. I don't know if you do.
Correct.
Sorry. Okay. So it's free, right?
Right. It is free.
So you need and you give it to one or two reps. You just give it to one or two and have them test it, so that you create this hypothesis that, look, we could be more efficient. And you may not be able to do the super deep integration that Sean's talking about. Maybe you can. I've never integrated it, so I don't know. But you at least want to go back to your executive team with some data, right? It sounds like you've got an executive team who's only going to make a decision at this stage based on data, and they're very concerned about spending money, which is totally fair, right? So you want to do that. You also want to maybe even talk to some other customers. Maybe there's some in the room there who've used Datanyze or have used SalesLoft, so that you have the right stories to tell. But you're going to need to make, for lack of a better word, a mini presentation to the executive team and prove to them why you need this tool. You're not, it sounds like they're not just going to let you do it, and that's unfortunate because it's not like it costs that much. It's ridiculous that they won't let you spend that kind of money on, these are no-brainers, some of these tools. So yeah, I'll stop there. But the other thing too is, if you're not sure how to do that, email me and we'll set up a time offline, and I can walk you through how to do something like that. I'd be happy to sort of help you out on that. So
yeah. And then for those of you who can make it to Seattle, Richard and I can actually teach a workshop up there on how to do this stuff and what does your sales stack look like. I personally think it's crazy to think that companies don't have any kind of technology for the salespeople. I think it's nuts, and those are the companies that you can see that are slowly going to start losing ground to these more lean companies that just think differently. I mean, it's like what Uber did to taxi cabs. They complain, but they're so old-fashioned the way they go about their business, and their process is just so old that of course they're losing. I mean, so much market share. So you want to think of it the same way, like Richard was saying. You want to empower your team and spend some money in your team. And I think it's nuts. It blows my mind when I go to these companies and they're like, oh, we just, I don't know, we buy lists. I'm like, you kidding me? There's so much out there where you can actually get real live data, and it just blows me away that companies don't do that. And there's tons of from SalesLoft to Outreach to all these other companies that help you with the email automation or the sales automation. It's like, why wouldn't you? Like, those tools help one person do the work of three. Anyway, I'm gonna get off my soapbox now, but yeah, I think it's nuts to think that companies don't empower the salespeople like this to become more efficient and do 3 times the amount of work. So if you guys want to come to that workshop, we'll go through all that stuff and show you guys how to build up your sales stack.
We had one more question out here. Cody from Good Data. So we were talking about scaling a team and everything. When you guys interview people, is there like 1 or 2 burning questions that you ask that you can kind of cut through and find out who truly someone is? Because we interviewed this one person and they aced the interview, they were perfect, but then when they actually started working, they would show up at 10, leave at 2, and not work. It was crazy. They were horrible. So it's like, is there a few questions that you guys ask that really can cut to the core of somebody?
Great question. I'll let Jason start, and I'll just hold you up.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Cool. So SalesLoft core values: positive, supportive, self-starting. When we interview, we want to uncover whether that person fits in the top 1% of all humans in that category. One of my favorite questions for understanding if they're self-starting or not is, where did you go to college and why? And so, we're here in Atlanta, and the first thing that they do is they talk about where they went to school. And so they may say, well, I went to Auburn. Like, why'd you go there? Well, my dad went there. That right there tells me this person may or may not be self-starting. What was your major? It was finance. Why finance? I was the only one in the business school I could get in. Again, it's not someone that goes and says, I went after something to get it. It kind of fell back into that. And so I kind of start digging in around to that. Well, how'd you like it? Why'd you do it? And from there, you can go into a million different questions, but you really kind of understand this person's decision-making on kind of core life decisions and what would uncover kind of that self-starting nature, as opposed to a guy that said, hey, why'd you do this major? Well, it was the only one offered at university. It happened to be the top one in the country for whatever it did. And I went after it. It may not have what I ended up doing as my major or career, but I learned a lot from here. And while I was during that process, I learned this and this, which made me kind of go to this. And I understood I was passionate about sales. Like, that's an answer you want to hear, right? And you can do the same thing for, supportive and positive. And you want to find that guy, or we're looking for that guy that's in a room of 100 people. Something may go wrong, and there may be 99 people that freak out. He's the only one that keeps his cool. He stays positive. He comes up with a solution, and he encourages everyone to help kind of counter it and go on from there. And so when we ask those questions and we go through the interview process, we're kind of going real far back to their first internship, their first job, their first job out of college, their next job, the decision-making that they took along that process. And all of those transfer into them being great humans in your business rather than being core good salespeople or core good SDRs. And so we're looking for that culture fit that we can train to be better and we can kind of level up than the one that just comes in saying, well, I can sell a bunch of stuff and this is how I've done it before.
Yeah. Let's steal that from you, Sean.
I've got a couple of things that I do. I ask a lot of personality questions, and I don't care if they're first year out of college or they've been in it for 10 years. And I purposely try to make them squirm a little bit, but then at the end I let them toot their own horn. So I will ask a couple of questions like this, and I'll say, if I were going to talk to a previous employer of yours, what would they say is something that you're awesome at? And what would they say is something you could really improve upon? And I want them to tell me something they can improve upon. because anyone who understands their own weaknesses is usually willing, in sales anyway, to try and improve them. So that's something that I've worked with. And if they ever give me the answer, well, oh, I'm a talker, but that's both good and bad, then I usually get rid of that person, because I don't want that person where they say their strength is their weakness, or they turn their weakness around into their strength, or that's bogus in my opinion. The second question I will ask them too is, tell me about a crisis you've had to go through in your life, and I'll let them choose. It doesn't have, I'm not saying it has to be work related or personal related. Just ask, tell me about a crisis, and they can usually spin a good story, which will tell me how they think. And if I can see how they think and how they handle stress, then that's a really important piece of sales. And then on the last question I would ask them, I say, what's the greatest accomplishment? What is it? What has it been? And they'll usually have something that they've got. Whether it was, hey, I was the first person in my family to go to college, or I didn't get into this school, but I got into this school. And a little bit like what Sean was saying is they've got to have a good story, not just a couple of word answer. Yeah. So if they can spin a good story and you believe them, then that's where I see it. So
you guys have helped us so much in the last 30 minutes, and I don't want to close this QA session before we get to Casey Corrigan. He's about to walk up here and introduce himself yet again to you guys. While he's on his way, I want you to think about 5 takeaways that you can present to our Portland Sales Acceleration leaders here before we start to wind down and talk about training events that are happening in the summer. But first, come on up, Casey. Casey Corrigan, here you go.
Thanks, Chris. Good to see you guys again. I'd like to continue the topic a little bit on, questions you ask or things you look for with SDR hires. I'll just add one that I think is kind of fun. I've been borrowing one from Peter Thiel as of late. That's been helping me to see how people think and their level of courage. And the question is, tell me something that's true that hardly anyone agrees with you on. And that one's actually been a lot of fun. But I was reading a blog post this morning on SalesLoft about finding good backgrounds that people come from that are great SDRs. We're in a bit of a growth period, looking for a few to add to our team. And Sean and Jason, would love to hear your perspective on what you look for from 2 groups. People that are straight out of college, and we kind of asked, where'd you go to college and why? That's cool. And people from marketing. So I've had a ton of success getting people that are like 1 to 3 years of experience in sales, but I'm feeling like I need to extend that a little bit right now, given our demands and kind of where I'm seeing for some folks. So from straight out of school and marketing groups, what do you look for with that, guys?
Yeah, those are great questions. So I'm a little biased to the recruiter background. So I came from, I did recruiting before SalesLoft, and there's a big difference between a terrible recruiter and a great recruiter. And there's really only 2 types of recruiters. And those are what they are. So a really good recruiter can have, they can be making a lot of potential money, but what they've really uncovered quickly is the ability to read people, the ability to provide value quickly, and the ability to build that relationship with them so they have trust. And so a lot of the successful people we've found that have been able to jump into that role have come from recruiting background, which honestly kind of segues into your first out of college, because that's a lot of people's first job out of college. It's one of the easiest entry-level sales types roles that you can get is in one of these big, international recruiting organizations. And if you can find a guy who's on his way up, maybe 6 months, maybe a year in where he's starting to rise, you can capitalize big time on someone with huge, what we call punching above your weight class, and the ability to, maybe be a middleweight, but he can, slug on some heavyweights because he's got that potential skill in him and take advantage of it. As far as people that are passed in marketing, I would take advantage of those because they're great writers. You need someone who can articulate knowledge very well through email, through social media, which, two-thirds of the process we use, phone, social, and email is written. And so you need someone that can not only write well, but articulate well, show value, show empathy, and communicate that to a prospect quickly and efficiently. And so finding great writers and people that can get after it from a marketing background of any sort can go miles within the sales development role.
Thanks so much, Sean. I'm going to jump in here because we've got about 9 minutes to go, and I don't want to keep you too late. I know it's getting late on the East Coast, but I want to give you guys a chance to recap. We'll start with Richard and see if you can offer us 5 takeaways from this conversation that our sales leaders here in Portland can begin to implement tomorrow, next week, next month, some of the things that they can really sink their teeth into as they start to scale their SDR teams. Thank you.
Sure. So one is make sure you know your numbers and your metrics, right? If you haven't started that process, at least start to identify it. Knowing your numbers will help you get more things accomplished, not just with your team, because it will encourage them, but also higher up with your executive board. I think that's the first thing. 2, make sure that you understand the concepts of tools, and be sure you understand the difference between a tool and a toy, right? Some tools are very cool, but they may not be exactly what you need, right? So, it probably, if you don't do video conferencing and you don't do demos that way, then you might not need something like Blab, right? But if you're an SDR team, you damn sure need SalesLoft. You damn sure need Datanyze. I mean, seriously, like you need those kinds of tools to help you accomplish what you need to get done. So make sure you know those things. And then I'll give you 2 more things. I'll give you 4. One is training and coaching, right? So it's one thing to make sure that your team has been trained on certain things, and whether it's me or someone else or yourselves who built your own sales processes, the training is really critical. That's the baseline. But the other piece of it is the coaching. You've got to dedicate time every day to literally sit by your reps and spend time with them while they're live, right? Not just their one-on-ones once a week. Now, your senior people, maybe you only do that once every couple of weeks. You don't have to do that all the time. But it's super critical that you have training, but then you have regular coaching, because that's how they're going to get better. That's just the way it is. There's a reason there's an offensive line coach and a cornerbacks coach and a running backs coach and a quarterback coach, because they need constant coaching. That's why it works. So I'll stop there and let the others join in.
Cool. One point I didn't get to touch on, but when you guys are, scaling a team, you have to have more people. So the way you guys hire for a particular role, make sure the way you guys hire is very similar to like how they're actually going to do the job, right? Design it in a way where it's like, okay, during this interview process, they're actually going to be doing things that they would be doing in the job. So you guys can get a feel for how they would actually perform. We do that a lot, and it really helps us to kind of weed out and filter out for really good candidates. That's one. The second thing, as you guys grow, really leverage the team that you have. Leverage them to support you. Leverage them to welcome the new team members and feel like they're a part of the team, and to also train them. Third thing, look out for those leaders. Who are the people on your team that have the empathy, who can connect at a really deep human level, because those people make really, really great leaders. And the other points Richard covered, so I'll leave you with those 3 points and let Sean close this out.
Sweet. To echo off Richard, honestly, I think the most important or the best decision I ever made while leading the SDR team was to implement 30 minutes of one-on-ones per rep per week, same time every week, no matter what, to go on coaching. And so you have to keep a fluent flow. You have to do it consistently. You have to do it over and over again. You have to be dedicated to it. So 3 more that I want to add. First one, what I've found with the best SDRs is the ones that can learn to ask these hard off-the-wall questions. If they can ask the questions that challenge a VP of sales or a head of marketing, and they can follow up with that question saying, hey, did I offend you? Are you upset with me now? Because if you give me a few more minutes, I can show you how passionate I am and how I really care and how we're helping people build their businesses to do whatever it is that the end solution does. And those people that have the ability to do that and communicate go much further than the ones who are a little sheepish on the phone. The second thing is listen. There's Steve Richard has a program or a class called active listening. And it's the ability to really talk less than you listen. And so that is your greatest ally. It's where you can uncover the keys to the castle, if you will, when you're talking to a prospect, where the more that they talk to you and the more that you ask questions and the more that you listen, the more that they'll uncover about their organization and what they do. and it has the biggest entry point for you to go then and pinpoint exactly what their pain is and how you fill it. And the last thing is realizing the importance of timing. Now, every time you get someone on the phone, it doesn't mean it's the right time for them. Odds are it's not. And that's where the kind of the relationship building comes in. And so the ability to understand that they may not be at the right time, but you have the ability to kind of follow up and keep it going. And the more that you can have your kind of leadership or your senior SDRs show that to the newer ones, the faster that these guys will build this pipeline of people that they can come back to over and over again. And they hire the ability they have to end up closing more demos and appointments later on down the pipeline. And so basically it's the fundamental understanding that your time is not their time and you have to respect their time over yours. So thank you guys for all being with us today.
Thank you guys, but we're not done yet. I want to give you guys a big shout out. Thank you, and thanks to SalesHacker for really inspiring this team, this group of folks here in Portland. We've got some SalesHacker training coming up in Seattle. But first, Sean, tell us a little bit about your summer plans. Where are you heading? What kind of events and conferences will you be at?
Well, I'll go first. In less than 48 hours, I'm going to be on a plane to Hawaii. So that's going to be the most important conference I attend all summer. So I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, Dreamforce is a big one. I'm actually going to be traveling a lot with SalesHacker as we're going around to different cities like we're going to do to Seattle. So probably those conferences will be the ones I'm at the most. And then the rest of my time, I need to be at clients. I need to be working with my client.
Jason, how about you?
Same as Richard. I'll be at Dreamforce this year, and then I'll be working a lot with Max at SalesHacker. We're doing a lot of the workshops we've been designing and just participating in those. So I'll be pretty busy this month and next month working with Max on those, and then you'll see me at Dreamforce.
Sean, SalesLoft is a huge player in SDR leadership. What is SalesLoft planning for this summer? Where can we find you?
You can find SalesLoft at all the SalesHacker events. We'll be at Dreamforce. We'll have a big presence there. I'm very excited for it. But then early next year, and something both Jason and Richard were a part of last year, is our Rainmaker conference, which is what we have kind of branded as the only sales development conference that exists. And what we focus on really is one thing, and it's sales development, and it's bringing leaders and practitioners together in one place to kind of grow that community and best practices. So we just announced it. It'll be March 8th through 10th here in Atlanta. I've got the inside scoop on a lot of cool things that we're getting planned, and I'd be excited to share a few teasers with you guys if you're interested. But I wouldn't miss it. If you're a leader in sales development and you're not there, you're missing out. It's really an awesome community, and we're really excited for it.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Rainmaker last year blew my mind. It was insane. What those guys put on for a first-time conference was absolutely awesome. There's actually, I did a blog post on it. It's on my website if you want to go read about it. And they did everything right. I mean, it was as good as any Dreamforce I've been to, and I've been to the last 4 or 5 of them. And it was a much more intimate affair, which made it even better because just got to know a ton of people. So if you're in the SDR space, you absolutely have to go to Rainmaker. And I will just, I know I've been pushing Sean and SalesLoft a lot tonight, but they know what they're doing. Those guys are super, super smart, and pick their brains anytime you can. So
we'll give you your pay cut at the end of this.
Yeah. All right. Still waiting.
Well, Sean, we can't thank you enough for sharing so many of your really brilliant ideas. Your work on online has been amazing, and we're taking a lot of cues from you. But we're here in Portland, Oregon, and I know next month something is coming up in Seattle. And I was wondering, Jason and Richard, if you could tell us a little bit more about the training that you're going to be leading up there for some of our Portland sales leaders down here.
So it's going to be a 4-hour session, and it's going to be a very small, intimate workshop where it's hands-on. And so there will be sort of mini sessions for 30 or 45 minutes where we'll talk about something and then do a Q&A. And it'll be things like how to identify your ideal customer profile. Do you have it? Do you know it? Doing some actual sales training, making sure that you understand and that your SDRs understand how to go deeper than just surface pains, right? Deeper than, gosh, I need more leads. That's a great thing for SalesLoft, but that's not really what they do. You know, they do way more than just help you get leads, and you need to understand that and what pains those things solve. So understanding the why and the how. So we'll do some sales training. We'll also do some stuff around hiring, interviewing, what do you look for in a candidate, job descriptions, compensation plans. And then at the end, or at some point, people will actually get up and present their ICP and their what, why, and how about their product and your company. And then we'll all sort of self-critique each other so that we can all get better. So it's really a very hands-on learning process. So.
Yeah, I think the goal there here, I mean, you can only fit so much in 4 hours, but we want to make sure we bring content that's really relevant. You guys can walk away with thinking about something at a deeper level that you never thought about, and also having the stronger framework to really build a kind of that sales machine or that outbound engine. So that's kind of the goal of what we're wanting to accomplish.
You guys have been really amazing tonight. And if our sales leaders in Portland, Oregon wanted to reach out with you, what's the best way for them to contact you? Would you mind putting your contact info in the chat bar, including Twitter handles, so we can send some shout outs and let people know how much we've really appreciated your time with us tonight?
Yeah, I'll do. I got to turn off my camera for a minute, but yeah, I've got technical issues.
Thank you guys so much. This has been awesome. I really enjoyed it.
Can we get a round of applause here? We're all hoping to make it out to Rainmaker, Sean. Save some seats for us at the in the forum there.
Listen, if you guys want to come, email me, and I'm sure there's some early bird cool pricing that we can help you out on.
Okay, I'm golden. How about you guys? Are you in? Woo! Jason, I look forward to seeing you in Seattle next month. It's going to be fantastic.
See you soon, man. Looking forward to it.
All right, Richard.
All right.
Thank you for joining us as well.
A lot of fun. Thank you. And by all means, everybody, if you ever have a question about anything, please just contact me. I'm happy to answer any questions and spend a few minutes on the phone with you guys to help you guys figure something out.
You guys have been amazing. You're helping accelerate sales here in Portland, Oregon. Thank you again so much, and have a phenomenal Friday. Talk to you soon.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
All right.